Hi, everybody. I guess I'm the millennial representation, Pam. I'm like tweeting at Rosenthal from the seats. Okay, so really excited to be here in Austin. Really excited to be part of a very distinguished panel and excited for our conversation. I thought I would get things going by doing a little audience survey about a few examples in recent memory that I think touch at this very debate about what's the difference between journalism versus advocacy. So we're going to show a few examples and then just take a poll of the room and get people to raise their hands and say whether you think this is an example of journalism or advocacy. Sound good? So here's the first example. This was obviously a photo of the 3-year-old Syrian boy that was taken by a Turkish photojournalist back in September 2015, which really galvanized the world's attention to the Syrian refugee crisis. Many people said it was one of the most important photos taken in recent memory. So let's take a poll of the room. Who thought this was an example of journalism? Basically everybody. And advocacy? Some people. And maybe both? Okay, both. There's a lot of both. Great. Here's another example. I think we heard from Univision earlier, but this was one of the memorable moments of the presidential election so far. It was an exchange between Univision anchor Jorge Ramos and obviously Republican frontrunner Donald Trump. And here's what Ramos had to say about the moment. He actually came under some attack for whether or not he was acting as a journalist or an advocate. And he said, in the aftermath of this incident, I was accused of being an activist. That's not the case. I'm simply a journalist who asks questions. And journalists have an obligation to take a stand when it comes to racism, discrimination, corruption, public lies, dictatorships, and human rights violations. So who thought this was a moment of journalism? A lot of people. And how about advocacy? Cool. A little bit more mixed on that one. And maybe both? Cool. And then the last one, and this is a fun one. People probably remember this moment. This is, of course, John Oliver's very famous Donald Trump clip. This is the most viewed John Oliver segment ever. It garnered 60 million views, or I think more than that on Facebook, 20 million on YouTube. And in the segment, of course, John Oliver called Trump a, quote, serial liar. And he also told viewers to use the name Trump when referring to Trump. And here was a quote that I just pulled, which I thought would be fun to rehash. Trump is much less magical. It's the sound produced when a morbidly obese pigeon flies into the window of a foreclosed Old Navy. It's the sound of a bottle of store-brand root beer falling off the shelf in a gas station mini mart. That was part of this segment. So, and then obviously as a part, after this segment, there were Make Donald Trump hats, which sold like hotcakes, and there was even a Drumpfinator Chrome extension, which you could download. So who thought this was an example of journalism? Much less people in the audience. And how about advocacy? Much more. And how about just straight comedy? Maybe that's a new category. Okay, so what do these examples show, and why did I bring up a few of them? Well, I think what they show is that the line between journalism and advocacy is very much blurred in the digital media era that we live in. Being a reporter in the social media era means having an ear to hashtags. It means paying close attention to viral causes. It also means that the nature of your Facebook feed is that the personal and the professional are blended. They're one. And it means that a focus on shareability, right? So shareability by its nature is emotional. Shareability in a way is advocacy, right? You share things because you really agree with them, or you really disagree with them, or you want to get your friends outraged about something, or you want to get your friends to band together against something, for something. So Facebook, of course, by nature of being so much about shareability, complicates the nature, I think, of what a modern digital journalist is. So all that being said, reporting very much still matters. Mike my company, exists in a distributed landscape. So we're always thinking about how our content lives across platforms. Our journalists use Facebook Live when they're going out to rallies. They use 360 video. They are thinking about Tumblr. They're thinking about Instagram. They're thinking about Periscope. And every new platform, they're thinking about Snapchat. So living on these platforms means that, again, we live in a world where the line is very much blurry between advocacy and journalism. But I've always seen our role as asking the tough questions and reporting on important social movements, but not going the extra step of getting people to sign up for causes or sign petitions. The reason I think that's important is that so many people who are our audience, which is 18 to 35-year-olds, the quote-unquote millennials, say that they're tired of partisan media. They're tired of cable news, which feels like they're preaching at them. They're tired of not being able to make up decisions for themselves. And so, I think the line very much does matter, and our readers have told us that it matters, but I think it is complicated. So I wanted to just close by giving one example of how we approach this very problem, and this was just actually from this week, so we debuted it on Wednesday. So we interviewed Vice President Joe Biden, who has been very active on campus sexual assault. As some people may know, he has a big initiative called It's on Us. He's been going all over the country promoting It's on Us. And this is an issue that is obviously an important one. It's a controversial one in Hollywood and Washington. And the stat that 1 in 4 women get sexually assaulted on college campuses is alarming to probably everybody or certainly everybody in this room. But when we went into approaching this interview, our responsibility was to our readers. And we really wanted to try to pinpoint the facts and ask the Vice President tough questions about whether It's on Us is actually working. So we went in trying to hold him accountable for what the program is and if it's working and if it's effective, rather than trying to be a distribution platform for the White House for an issue that obviously our readers care deeply about. So we didn't approach our work as advocates. Our job was to take a hard look at the facts, and that's true even though we had a very distributed strategy when it came to putting this package together. So these are just a few examples. I'd encourage everybody to go check out the video, and we had a whole series of really, really great reporting. But this all lived across social, right? This lived on Facebook, this lived on Twitter, the videos lived on Instagram, on all these platforms, and we were really, really, we had a lot of big discussions internally about, even though this is an issue that we know most of our audience is really, really upset about, and that our strategy was living on social, we were careful to make sure that we felt like we were really asking the tough questions rather than, as I said, just promoting the initiative. So we're really proud of that. With that, I'm going to wrap it up. I'm really excited for the discussion, and thank you all for listening.